Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of Attack Productions. Today, bankrupt once again by Nick and Jake.
Howdy, howdy.
What's going on, yeah?
In today's matchup, it's me versus Nick, and it's actually a rematch from last week. This is, I would say, our part 2 to our store championship. And last week, I did manage to beat Nick, but we'll see if it can happen again this week. There's buttons, links, check them out. Let's get into it. Normally I say, hey, let's talk about what you think and what to expect and what's your deck, but I feel like this week's just more or less what's your game plan that's differently in this matchup than it was last matchup.
Not lose my Android 16.
Yeah, so as just to put it out there, petrification does not negate the skills. It prevents the autos from being procced. So as long as you don't pop 16, they don't get to Z Awaken, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, so we learned just to do that at the very last. We learn from our mistakes. That's how we play this game.
Obviously, this is Gohan, so we will see 16. And when we do, I remember making the comment in our match saying, so you learned.
Yeah, Gohan, it's extremely straightforward. The first 3 turns are going to be the same pretty much for any deck, any Gohan list. It's pretty much figured out at this point. Turn 1, you get Vegeta or Trunks, throw them in the chamber. Turn 2, you play them. Then you throw Goku and Gohan in the chamber. And then turn 3, you play them and then continue playing the game. So my first few turns are pretty boring. Not much happening.
It's very... I mean... Gohan's first couple turns are also very aggressive in terms of, I will say, crit. Because both the Vegeta and since you have charged the Great Ape, it kind of implies that you have another one loaded to go. And it's free for you to play the Vegeta, if correct. So, like, you have 2 really strong, like, attacking cards on your first turn. Or sorry, on your turn 2 play. And going into that turn, I always have to be careful, like, what am I willing to take? And what do I need to block? Or what do I need and whatnot?
Yeah, I was just about to ask how you feel about that Great Ape Vegeta.
So
I like it.
I like it as well. And I've seen, so both Jimmy and I've seen some other people who've done profiles say the card is garbage. And in the instance, I wouldn't say fully garbage, but in the instance that outside of like 3 green decks, I think, the card is garbage. You can't really play it, you know? But those 3 decks you can play in very well, it's very good. It's a turn 1 19k crit. It's a 19k blocker, so after you swing it, if your opponent wants to get rid of it, they have to expend 1, maybe 2 cards, depending on what you're swinging with. And then if it stays on the board, if you have to keep it as a blocker, it's there for you to as free protection. And that 1 energy goes a very long way. Like, I talked to Fluff about it. I was like, a lot of blue players will put in Piccolo the Infiltrator for 2 energy. You're getting a 20k dual attack. The only difference is that that can be played in any blue deck. With this particular card, it can be played in any green deck as long as you have a field card. So like Turtle School and Gohan.
Yeah, so the card in and of itself is not that great. But yeah, in the right list, it does wonders. And you want to... I like early crits, especially in the meta right now where most decks have alternate awakens. Just denying the opponent that resource or making them pitch cards from their hands to save themselves. I think it makes all the difference in the world in the early game because that's just less resources for them to have in the late game for when you're actually going to kill.
In this instance, I didn't want to waste cards from my hand because I knew those cards in my hand. Every card I get in my hand is very important in this matchup, especially against this deck where was it Gohan's Awaken Rage, the counterattack. It's a floodgate, and you have to expend cards from your hand in order to attack. And then the Z Leader is naturally a 20k, which those 2 combined is just really strong. And not only that, the free 10k combo. Yeah. So like every card counts. So I, instead of taking the crit or comboing out, I just blocker negated it instead.
Yeah, and yeah, in a vacuum, again, like the Gohan list is just insanely strong. It just does so much. It's got early pressure, it's got defensive pressure, it's got free combos. It can combo with cards from rest mode. It can burn life. It can burn the hand. It pretty much is a jack of all trades. They really overtuned this deck, and it just worries me because again we're almost falling along the lines of Gogeta and Sin, where now that this deck exists, granted green wasn't that strong of a color to begin with recently, but if this deck exists, what's the point of playing other green decks?
Yeah, and we talked before, like this card right here. I played the Geneva in hopes of really drawing a card, but if you crit a life, it's still a plus for me. It's one less card that you get to add your hand. Unfortunately, it was a Vegeta. I was hoping it would be something a little bit better. But no, like going off what you said, like we talked about in the past, like green has a lot of good cards. It just never had an archetype that could really carry it. And yeah, that is the question. Like this deck is so good. The question is next set and the set after that. Like, are we going to get anything that's the equivalent of Green Gohan or something that could be really good in terms of going up against it without feeling like, oh my god, this is green. They have great defense and great offense.
Yeah, green. Green is in such a weird spot. It's my favorite color, but yeah, it's so divisive, and it worries me.
I feel like they've been afraid to let it fly, and this is kind of their first attempt at really like pushing a green deck in the way that like yellow and red decks have been pushed, in recent sets.
Yeah. The last time I think green was, and I'm gonna go straight like mono green because like we've seen this green yellow cells was ridiculously like, but
and gamma and stuff like that.
But set 3 cell, the hand control back in that day, yeah, you go down 3 cards, but that was really important. That was such a strong format that they had to, limit those cells. And I don't think green has really strived. Like we've seen green here and there, and I know the last Gohan deck was very popular. I never had a problem with that deck, but at our locals, a lot of us tend to play a little bit more defensive than we do offensive.
Oh, I had a lot of fun playing that deck.
Me too, Jake. Remember our match?
Yeah, I mean, you and Nick have both beaten me in pretty hilarious ways with that deck, but it's still a fun deck to pilot.
Yeah. Speaking of green, that EDK was a good hit, Nick, on your part. Hitting my super combo.
Yeah, I felt like it was okay to use it in this case, mostly because I wanted to push damage, especially since you let it go through. I know with your blocker negates and garlics and stuff, like it's not rare, but I need to get as much damage as I possibly can in. And putting you down at 3, I think, is the best choice because now you have to watch out for my boss monster.
And I will say, in experience, a lot of people at our shop could agree to this. I tend to go really low in AOD a lot. Like I'll go down to 1 life, I'll go down to 2 life against the right deck because I know some decks could just pop a life. But in certain matchups, I feel I'm comfortable going down that low because if you can't kill me that turn, there's a good chance on that crackback I'm taking you out.
Yeah, and before I went in the middle of my turn when you were talking, I just want to mention I tried playing the Goku Gohan boss monster. In order to play it, your opponent has to be at 3 energy, so that's why I had to take it back. It was too early.
So going here, I charged this cell. I'm sorry, I charged the Sin because obviously I have another one in my hand, but that's kind of like the key card. You're at currently 4 life. I'm trying to get at least a hidden onto you before I even attempt to play that card. But I'm also trying to bait out your blocker because the auto for you is either when I play a card or at the end of my turn because you could choose when to proc that auto. I'm just like either you'll block it or hopefully I can play a card and you'll proc it then. But I mean, like a good player, why would you proc it on a play card when you can just block a card?
Yeah, especially in such an aggressive heavy deck like this, there's no reason unless you play a card that can pop it in itself. Then that's when you would use it. But yeah, there's no reason not to when you want to be defensive, especially when I'm not 20k yet, and all your little guys still have that pressure potential.
I mean, not potentially. Sorry. I should have played Sin right then and there and just popped it because I've done enough on my end to get all the draws I need. And if you were to negate on that point, I could just literally pass turn my board of 2 open energy and just go into the next turn. So something to look back on for future gameplays, I think, for me.
Yeah, the way it felt to me, sitting across from you, you were under. It felt like you were under the assumption that I had the floodgate in hand, so you were trying to dance around it, and which was 100% accurate. I did, but the spoilers. But yeah, I didn't want to waste it in the wrong time. Like I didn't want to waste it right from the jump because then that already sets the precedent of you playing around. So you're already expecting that in my mind. So that's why I wanted to save it for like a big swing because I don't even at that point I don't even have to worry about the combo potential or anything like that.
Yeah. So I went to go Android 13. I'm like, and I think in the process, I'm like, oh wait, I can't hit it, so never mind. And I just launch a boo and just to eat the token here. So I have a choice here. Your hand isn't like you don't have a super big hand, but your hand isn't small. And I can either continue swinging into you or pass turn. I ended up passing turn. I think at the moment I passed my turn, I went, oh shit, because Gohan on play will pop a card.
On swing or that card, yeah,
yeah. So like I have 2 blockers, so I know I'm safe on that end. And maybe I could have swung with the garlic or the Geneva, but at the same time, your leader now is a 20k if I recall correctly, and that additional pressure, or I would have to expend more cards in my hand I didn't want to do. So that's the reason why I just passed though.
Yeah, and now that my leader's in here and the double strike, and since you're 2 life, you have to respect it. You can't just let a swing go through like that and possibly lose. So here we have a board, so we're not really playing anything just yet. We're just waiting to see what he does. I don't want to overcommit and then lose on just a random play. So I want to bait as much out as we can and provide pressure to force him to use the resources that he already has to get me in a position where when I'm actually playing cards, I can go for the kill.
That's something that I've noticed this format more so than recent formats is that it's a lot easier to overextend now that things have kind of been shaken up and certain leaders aren't as accessible or not accessible at all anymore. It's a lot easier to overextend and kind of walk into a trap or some unexpected pressure from the opponent and just not have enough energy or cards in hand to sustain the crackback.
Yeah. So the reason why we swung and charged the Gohan was to go for the cooler play. I felt like it was the right choice at the time because your hand size was starting to get a little low, and I was with going into the Kaioken Goku, I was wanting to rip as much as possible, just because in my mind, I didn't think I was able to kill, but doing this enough is forcing your hand down low, and I think I still have the floodgate in hand, so you potentially won't be able to get that many swings to me. This is more of a offensive/defensive style play. And we charged the Z energy because I was thinking about going into the Frieza combo to restand the cooler and do more, but I felt like this was the safer choice of the options. And again, I still have the floodgate in my hand, so if I can rip as many cards out as possible without spending many of my resources, then it's going to make me feel safer on your turn than back to me for the win. We're thinking 3 turns ahead, essentially, is what we're doing.
Green is one of those colors that is really resilient with only 1 or 2 energy up. And here we see Cell Max coming down. I mean, why not turn it sideways? Oof.
Yeah. No, like I was waiting for either the father-son Kamehameha thing or your secret pop just to petrify it. So it's not a problem for me now. It's not going to go anywhere. Its effects won't go off. I'm good.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I'm not too upset about it because he had to pitch that and a card out of his hand just to stop the swing, essentially. And honestly, that's okay with me.
And thinking back on it, I don't think Oh no, because I wanted to remove it with Boo, so I had to petrify it so its auto wouldn't proc. Yeah, that's right.
Mhm.
So this is where things get a bit, I'm going to say, interesting. So my hand's down to like 4 cards now. I think yours is at 6, but you have 3 life still, so you're getting some more life at some point. I do pull the Sin to my hand with Turtles, and really at this point, I'm really just trying to bait a negate of some sort from you, because I'm trying to, like, I want to play the Sin, or I want you to expend resources from your hands. So like when I play the Sin, the attack's going through, and here I'm reading the negate. I'm like, okay, if you want to play this, you have to pay it and discard 2 cards for its effect, and then you get to draw 1 afterwards. So it's 3 cards from your hand. You're getting an additional card afterwards. So you're losing a net 2 for just doing it if you were to do it.
Yeah, but we are tapped out, so there are some easy options to pick for that additional discard. Any extra cards, negates, things like that. I think I do have some targets, but at the end of the day, I will take, especially since I know there's triple strike potential, I will take losing 2 extra cards out of my hand to not die.
Yeah. And I use Unimit to bounce Turtles back to my hand just to free play it using the leader's ability, just to get more cards in my hand. Because, like I said, you did take out a lot of cards in my hand, and I had to take 1 out of my hand as well. And here, you chose, once again, not to negate.
Yeah, essentially, I'm saving it for the triple strike play, because right now, since my leader's 20k base, you're going to have to combo if you want damage to go through, so you're going to lose value out of your hand. I mean, you could go into the board if you wanted to, but which you do, but it's easier for me to save the negate for the big triple strike play, so I don't even have to worry about the swing.
Yeah. So you finally do it after swinging Boo, who's naturally at 25k, which is smart because it's one card that if you want to get rid of, if you want to attack, you have to do something in combo turns. And there, I almost paid 1 to play Sin, and I think I should have, but I wanted to make sure you had no other negates in your hand. I wanted to make sure that whatever swing I'm throwing at you, I'm going to combo a card off from the field. Just keep on pushing, applying pressure.
Right, which is the smart play to do.
Because it's one of those things we don't know what our opponent actually has. We can only believe or think. I've only seen 1 homicidal clones in your so far that you've played, so there's a chance you have another one somewhere. With 2 life, you could just proc it if I were to swing with the big boy, and at that point it's practically GG, like you got it. So here I play Garlic to play Slug, just get another swing, and then combo the Slug off afterwards with it.
Yeah, but now that I'm Z Awakened as opposed to last week, nothing besides extra cards, nothing really in my hand is dead now. Because that was one of the problems that happened last week, was since I wasn't Z Awakened, my Goku battle card, that's the counterplay, it still cost 1, it wasn't free. So I was clunked with those, but now as you can see, I'm comboing them off nicely and still chilling. And granted, I think I did over combo in that a little while ago.
No.
But
I don't think. I think you get to where it needed to be. So here I'm frustrated because I didn't want to combo a card off. But I just did have instinct because it's what you do when you go for game, you know.
Yeah.
Because I was going to pay the last energy to play, the 15k Frieza, and then pitch that last card in my hand instead of comboing it, and then swing and then combo the Babidi. Now, Nick did have 2 additional combos in his hand, so that wouldn't have mattered. And looking back on it, maybe I should have just gone for the initial sell play Garlic, and just combo my entire field to hand off and see if I could get you to lose all your resources, you know? But hey, it is what it is at that point.
redemption.
So we're 1-1, and until next time, thanks for tuning in. Keep minders, buttons, links, check them out. Bye.